I think we can get started. We have about an hour to talk about social media, and it's a real testament to the growth, the involvement of the course directors and how much influence they've put in on the session being an hour. And we're really going to take you through a couple of different topics on social media and its growth in the cardiovascular community. But I'm going to start by taking it a step back. And so there's been a breadth and a lot of growth of social media in interventional cardiology in particular. Just as you know, when you signed up, a lot of people are telling you to follow the hashtag of this particular meeting, CVI2018. I'm going to tell you about how social media and its growth really allowed engagement in an evidence-based practice of radial first. So why are we even talking about social media? And we've all heard a lot about social media, and that's because of social media's inherent quality of personal engagement, regardless of the platform that you're using. And to date, 7 in 10 Americans are on social media as a way to communicate with each other. And if you look at the data from 2006 to 2018 current, US adults, about 70% are all on some form of social media platform. And when you stratify this by age, US adults at the age of 65 or greater are actually a growing percentage. So this is not just a millennial's home. It's a place where everybody is learning that this is where communication is. This is where there's fast-moving growth of information, and it's being disseminated on social media. And here's just another schematic of the growth of the US population and their engagement in social media from 2008 to 2017. So what about cardiologists? And why is it even taking an hour session at this meeting? Because we see the same growth amongst cardiologists. And to date, and this is unpublished data from MedShare Online, which is a protected community between physicians that's HIPAA protected, where they share cases. And in their database, there are 400,000 cardiologists, 275,000 of which are on Facebook, 262,000 are on Twitter. And a lot of physicians use Facebook for personal reasons, but those physicians who have a page to promote their practice might be using it in a different means. Twitter-based conversations amongst physicians seem to be more professionally focused and less personal, and about 37,000 are using LinkedIn. This is a very complicated diagram, and really what I want you to focus on is we used to see a growth in social media between the recency of your graduation year. Again, millennials or younger, early career cardiologists were on social, but what we're finding, and that matches the older age, not older age, but the 65 and older, as that's catching on, so are the mid-career, advanced career cardiologists, and that gap is narrowing. So why? Why is that gap narrowing? And why are we here, and why are we talking about social media? Because cardiologists are using social media to engage in many different aspects of learning, from case discussions to journal club to advocacy to building their own practice to creating clinical surveys to ask questions that are getting answered at this meeting, to keep up with healthcare news and policy, and to get expert opinion. So this is just a breadth of, and this slide's been used many times before in our talks, but you can use engagement through social media, whether you're engaging with colleagues, you're at a meeting, you want to create a public awareness on a message, or any type of program that you're building, and it's all powered through the hashtag. Because the hashtag gives whatever topic you're speaking about longevity. And it actually links to a very large database in the Twitter sphere. And it can extend to other social media platforms too. Instagram also has a very big hashtag database. But currently, Twitter and Instagram are most hashtag-based social media platforms. And these are just examples of popular hashtags that are used in our community. But the hashtag then allows you, when you use the hashtag, to engage in global scientific meetings, whether you're here or engaging virtually. Similarly, the hashtag, if you just look to the left, allows you to engage in a British Medical Journal club. And same with New England Journal of Medicine. You can just follow an NEJM chat, and you'll be engaging current, real time in that platform. And you can engage in a bunch of other social awareness campaigns as well. In terms of how hashtags are used to catalog clinical research and case discussions, they're just used to tag a topic. Here, Greg Stone, a major clinical trialist, actually is disseminating information on a new FFR guided strategy for referring patients to CABG. So here you have a major thought leader disseminating information on Twitter. You have Perez, he's always presenting high-risk cases, cardiogenic shock cases, tweeting out a question where he's getting feedback about how they would manage this lesion. And here you have Amir Kaki talking about percutaneous axillary access using the hashtag PercAx. This is from some of the work I've done at UCLA, where we used the UCLA Women's Heart hashtag during different events or different research announcements that came out of our cardiovascular center. And here, the hashtag is really being used to catalog what we do as a women's cardiovascular center. So I want to talk about radio first, because that was a big movement about 1.5 years ago. And really, we looked at the growth of social media amongst cardiologists. We put our heads together and we said, okay, how can we grow the presence of leaders in the field? Because if we're going to engage cardiologists to get on social media, then we need the breadth of information that's on social to be validated. There's no peer review process. But if you have thought leaders on there, what better way than to make sure that the information that's on there is accurate and is well balanced? We noticed that there wasn't a lot of information on social about radial, and we needed a quote-unquote hashtag radial. Shadi and I worked together on a lot of social media awareness when we were fellows, and we finally were able, after 4 or 5 meetings, to grab Sunil Rao and get him to get on Twitter. And then we put our heads together about a month later, and we asked ourselves, how can we leverage the growth of social media amongst cardiologists and improve transradial PCI adoption? And so when you look at transradial intervention growth, and this is registry data from Cath PCI, it's really been poor. Between 2007 and 2012, the uptake was really only 6.3% total. And even when you looked at this recent update of 2017 first quarter data, only 36.2% of PCIs performed in the US are through the transradial access. And this is well behind the UK, which has really been shown to increase adoption and improve mortality because it's their default access strategy. So coming back together then, we asked ourselves, and I love this quote by Sunil, to have a big impact, one needs to reach a global audience, and that was the motivation behind using Twitter and creating Radial First. And so Radial First is a hashtag that's being used now to date. I'm going to show you some of the data to really educate best practice, tips and tricks, increase adoption, and reach a global audience. And it was launched January 26, 2017 with this group. And to date, this is how Radial First, and this is very recent data. Radial First is being used to demonstrate how complex cases are being performed using radial access, even with ROTA and a 1.5 burr. You can see people have actively commented on it. It was used in EuroPCR. It's used to catalog new data where transradial intervention is being placed in guidelines in Europe. It's even being used by the peripheral community, and it's being used by IR outside of interventional cardiology. To date, Radial First, and this is data from January 2017 launch to June 2018, it has made 82.7 million impressions. It has about 41,000 independent tweets and 5,200 approximately active users. And so from inception, which is down at the left, all the way to current June 2018, the blue represents the continual growth of new users, and orange is active engagement of previous users. So you can see that the engagement has not only sustained, but has had a steady growth each month. And this is the number of tweets, which show the same trend. And again, the impressions have grown, and the previous impressions remain the same. And when you take a step back and you look at some Twitter analytics through Simpler have allowed us to show a network analysis of engagement in this hashtag, you can see that there's real thought leaders that are driving this discussion. So here you have engaged thought leaders that are working with other physicians, commenting on how the hashtag is being, all by way of the hashtag, this communication is happening, and this is data from a year and a half. So in summary, in terms of using social media to drive engagement, it's a very powerful tool. It can increase awareness and engage a global audience, and that's evidenced by Radio First. Key opinion leaders and experts can really drive the conversation to create a scalable impact on a global level. And topics stay green and receive continual engagement on social media. One comment that we're always asked in interviews is, how can a fellow get started? One of the best ways, just to focus on key opinion leaders, if you're a fellow and you're motivated to start tweeting, or you're young in your early career, team up with a best practice person. If you know a clinical if you know somebody who's known for a craft or a trade, but they're not tweeting, you can tweet with them. And that's going to give you the ability to leverage and help them out. So people can grow together. You can use your skill set at being good at social and digital and enhance the fact that they've built a very large denominator of high-risk cases. And you can start promoting the practice at your institution that way. We'll have more time for comments and discussion.
Well, thank you, Sheila. I think you broke the ground with this so much information for everybody. The purpose of this session is to engage the audience. We're not here to do a podium. You're sick of sitting here watching wires and balloons and access, bleeding, perfs. So we want to engage you, not because you're learning from the slides, but also want to learn from you. What's your practice and how do you use social media? So by the raise of hands, who is not on social media? Oh, only one person. Okay, that's no platform, nothing. Facebook, Instagram.
Oh, I have Instagram.
Okay, you are in then. So that's the purpose of my question is we're all on social media. And who is using social media just to watch what's happening? Watch your kids, watch your friends, who got married, who went to vacation, who bought a new car, who's going where, right? I mean, that's what we use it for. So who using it for professional use, meaning you put up cases and you put discussions and bring up papers and ask people to comment on some scientific documents. Okay, we have handful of people. So the purpose of this session, we try to convince you from transitioning from being everybody on social media to everybody using it professionally, but more importantly, safely. And this is very important, using social media to be safe. And also to assure you that social media is safe if you follow certain steps. All right, so I would like to ask the audience before Yader is going to touch on a very important topic, how to use it for academic profile and building your academic portfolio. Who's afraid of putting putting patient and anonymous patient information on social media? Who's afraid? Okay, so there is fear. Can you tell me why you're afraid? What?
So first of all, like patient confidentiality, which we try our best to minimize. Secondly, cases with complications, we are always afraid like whether we work in a team, if all the team members will be on board in disseminating that particular complication, even as a learning tool. Not everybody is okay all the time.
Yeah, I think, look, most of us work either for a practice or for a hospital, so there's a third party there, and we may not know all the nuances of the legal aspects of this, and there's also interpretations of that, and then the patient approvals of that. So I think historically in peer review press, you can do this, and you have a third party, which is the journal that assures all of this, but in the setting of your own sort of posting, I think there's no protection. And so if you can... I'm not sure what the right answer is, but I've tended to stay away from it for those reasons, and I have other platforms and other ways of promoting myself online without cases.
So you have very high threshold before really you go and post patient information.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, I'd probably still go the normal peer review process for cases.
So how do you use it professionally then?
So professionally, I think I use it to build a profile of me as a person in my field. There's different buckets, like new publications, new consensus documents, stimulate discussion, things I do at meetings, Like I tweeted now when Sheila was up there with 3 of the slides, things like that, so people can stimulate discussion, but also to build a brand for myself. So I think I use a lot of it for building, who is my name, who is Srihari Naidu, and what am I passionate about, if people think of my name, what do they think about, as an expert perhaps, and that makes my life easier when patients find me or when other referrings try to find me.
So who knows what Dr. Guru is expert for?
Nobody see?
Okay.
Karjani Shock. Holcomb.
So the reason why I know he's Holcomb person because he posted his team in the lab. I know he works. He posted the new book that you published or released, and a new publication as well. So that's why it's very important. Sometimes I see people coming in the hallway. I never met them in my life, but I know exactly what they do, what they are experts in before even introducing myself. And this is through social media. And he's not putting any patient-sensitive data. He's a personal branding. He's branding himself. He's a Shock and Holcomb person. And therefore, if you are in New York or you have a network or you have a Holcomb patient, probably you're going to be the first person come in mind to refer a patient to him. So this is how you can use it professionally. So I saw some other hands who are afraid of social media. Who raised his hand? Just speak up. It's open forum.
I'm afraid of internet trolls and people posting negative things about my post.
That's good. Just to rephrase your answer is, if you put wrong answer, for example, or wrong information, or they would. Okay. So or probably you are not an expert enough, and there's somebody else shows up. He has more experience in the field and comment more. But I would take that as an educational activity. Okay, where somebody corrected me, perfect. And they do that a lot to me. And if they're polite, they direct message me, said, Shad, you put something really stupid, you have to take it out. And so I go there and take it out. If they are nice and friendly. If they are more, sometimes they put, okay, I agree with you, but however, there's 1, 2, 3, I would consider before doing that. All right? Or say good job and some fist emojis. Which is, you would like to see that, so at least you get feedback from your following network. Who else is afraid of using social media for professional use?
Well, I just wanted to make a comment about being afraid about comments. I think that social media growth in cardiology has, to some degree, made comments very public, and people try to stay neutral. There are certain responses, but if you don't say anything too polarized, you're probably going to get more of a neutral response. A lot of the negativity that's been expressed, and there were some recent things that happened in May with certain devices and some commentaries directed towards industry and data and usage. And then there's a few other people that have been identified in Europe that have commented on US. But what level of training are you? Okay, so you have other third parties to be worried about, but there's so much. As a nurse who's a program manager, you're in a leadership position. Your voice is so important on social. There are young nurses that would be inspired by your tweets and what you're doing, and if any of the protocols that you're using at your hospital are published, you can disseminate that, and then you're going to be known for your role and your title with your institution. You can always run things by your marketing at your institution to kind of help create a presence, if you want, on social media.
Who uses social media to listen? Meaning just to see what's happening and learn from that. And take that learning opportunity and bring it back to practice. Okay, whoever raised his hand, do you want to comment on that? Somebody, do you have a mic?
No, I was going to say, I use
It's
it.
working, yeah, it's working.
Yeah, it's working.
Go ahead, Jared.
No, I think, probably many, is this working? Doesn't seem like it. Many of us, you can tweet, as Dr. Naidu was mentioning before, articles that you're interested in or things that you want to provide a platform for a certain topic, radial first or so on. But there are a lot of things that I have limited knowledge or that I want to learn more. So when you see other folks that are experts, they're sharing videos or the latest paper or something that you really didn't know about, I would say most of my time in social media, rather than tweeting, I am observing and learning about cases and tricks and how did they dealt with that subclavian tortuosity, or look at that very nice trick. So I learned a lot about that. And what I wanted to add is about this issue of perception or social media. So for example, all these sessions that we've had about cases and complications and tricks, all of this is being recorded. All of this is going to be publicly accessible. It's going to be in YouTube. So it's no different. It's going to be publicly available the same way our posts are in Twitter. So to me, it's a lot about the perception that people have of how it's different in Twitter. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's equally accessible. Actually, what Twitter makes it makes it more interactive, because then you have people that can actually go back and forth and provide a nice discussion. So just a couple of thoughts.
Anybody want to challenge that? Anybody want to challenge Jader? Did he convince you that probably it's, as long as you are practicing safe social media posting, you are okay to do that? Okay. And we're going to show you some safe tips. But you said you learned something on social media and brought it back to practice. Do you remember that example?
Oh, I follow several organizations on Twitter.
And you know what they're publishing or what they're releasing?
Most of it is, I'm a nurse practitioner and I work in cardiac stress testing at UC Davis. So I follow JAMA Cardiology, and I follow some of the stuff from UC Davis. So I'm very novice.
And you are following the local news and also
Local, and then some of the stuff from JAMA.
And I think to your point, to the same point, both social media and not social media, like regular conferences, none of them are perfect. Like everywhere you go, you're going to see postings or presentations that have potentially identifiable data. So I think to keep it as educational and as safe as possible, let's say you're in a community in which you're the only hospital, and you can't post that, and the only hospital, and cite your location and say like, great case, Impella, cardiogenic shock, STEMI, great success, and post the images, time associated with details, age, because that allows for a lot of potentially identifiable information. So I think if you're going to post educational cases, I think it needs to be like, preferably not time associated and somewhat ambiguous. It doesn't really matter the age and the location. I would just say like middle-aged patient with cardiogenic shock. Here's how we did the alternate access Impella. All the other details, they're really not as important. So that would be a tip of advice, to keep it as educational without putting yourself in the opportunity to, display any HIPAA problems.
That's challenging though, because alternate access is so rare. So it's one thing that came out in a TCT session on social media was that be aware that your patients could be following you. And so your patient's children who accompanied the procedure, if it's done in a small town and some proctor flew in to do percutaneous access and the family knows that alternative access, and then the son is following you on Twitter and you tweet this, it's important to know that they could feel offended or a breach of privacy because they know that that's their family member. It's very important to keep that in mind, even when sometimes physicians engage in discussions with each other and it can get a little heated, but still respectful. Your patients can see that. So it's very important to conduct yourself as you would when you're taking care of a patient, when you're in a professional setting, and to maintain those really respectful mannerisms, because it's public, not just for your own professional community, but for the community at large, including your patients and their family members.
Anybody familiar with media consent? Media consent. Have you came across one in the lab or in the hospital? Anybody raise their hand if you did? Okay. So there is a media consent from your institution. If you contact your media office, whether you work in a health system or a university, contact them and they send you a copy. It's a PDF. So what usually I do, if I know this is going to be a great educational case, as I'm consenting the patient for the procedure, I explain to him or her or the family, look, you are an interesting case. There's a lot of educational tips and tricks generated from this case. We might post this on social media or even use it for presentation and scientific meeting. Are you okay with that? 99.9, they say yes. Nobody will say no. But if this is an extra layer, if that make you more comfortable, just call your media office and get it, and consent the patient. Especially because I think what we are doing in the lab, there's a lot what we do in the lab, or an echo, or on the floor, or you see things on the at the bedside. It's not getting broadcasted, and by the time it reaches CVI challenging cases 2018, there is thousands and thousands of cases that have been missed. So use social media to promote that practice or tips and tricks, but have this extra layer of documentation. And this is how I do it in the hospital. I think Jara and they agree with me, and this can protect you in case something goes really bad, or somebody. So you know what? I consented the patient, and that's my proof.
Yeah, and I think so. And I don't know that there's a. I agree. I don't know that there's a perfect answer from what I've learned. There's a couple of ways. If it's like, let's say, it's a pathologic slide with nothing on it identifiable, that's probably okay. Things like this, that there's no way you can trace like. That's my mitochondria. That's probably okay. But if there's any opportunity that there's something that's potentially identifiable, like most hospitals have actually this media form, because most hospitals or healthcare systems actually use these forms all the time when they are doing these news stories about Mr. X. He survived this condition, and we're interviewing him for this channel. They will have them sign that form, and that's that same form that you can use for this sort of aspect, and either do it before or after. In any sort of way of however it works. So yes, that's something that I've learned through you guys as well.
Who in the audience have seen something really bad on social media and they said, I wouldn't have posted this? Okay, so just 2 people. So you don't see anything bad coming on social media? So do you want to tell me what you've seen that you didn't agree with?
Well, lots of things, like political comments. I don't.
Let's keep politics on the side.
I think to what you said too, I've seen nurses post, great case, we had a STEMI, blah, blah, blah. And there's a fine line of keeping it personal.
I think we have a tendency when we get that rush of excitement and success, we just run to our phone and take pictures. And like when you go to vacation or you buy a new car, you get that rush and you take a picture of it and you post it right away. I think the same rush comes when you do a case or something. All right.
I wanted to ask something to Sheila, actually. It is for me, and I think probably for most people, and I'll pass you the mic. When I talk to people that are not on social media, or even people like myself and others that are on social media, it can become a distraction. So like people, you're getting tagged, or there's something, a tweet, or you're busy clinically. How do you advise people and myself, how does one use the tool wisely and maximize the platform, but also and make it something that's synergistic rather than something that's harmful that you're working in? And what do you do in your?
I can answer this question better now that I'm actually in practice, and it's very true. If you're just getting started, it's going to take a lot of time. And so they talk about a dopamine release. When you tweet something, you look for a response, you look for engagement, whether it's likes on Facebook or likes on Twitter. In Twitter, you want to get retweeted more than liked, and on Instagram, you obviously want to get liked and viewed. So that is a distraction. If it's going to keep you on, if you're not going to be able to tweet and stop thinking about it, or engage in social and stop thinking about it. Another thing, though, is if you have been active. So I was very active as a fellow. And then I noticed a change when I joined practice. And a lot of that was what Yadar is going to touch upon. I work in a couple of small different community hospitals in New Jersey with not a lot of focused, it's not the UCLA health umbrella that I was working under as a fellow. And I didn't have the protection of my attendings. So my tweeting pattern changed. I focused more on awareness and health and prevention. But then I saw a natural dip. And one of my mentors, Dr. Mehran, actually told me, don't worry, you should actually focus on building your practice. So I think it's normal as you go through transitions in your training to watch your social media engagement ebb and flow. It's highly distracting, and to make a high quality tweet, it does take time. You have to know what you're saying. It's got to be accurate. You don't want to get, it's a professional community now, and thought leaders are on it. And if you're engaging with them at meetings, they're watching what you're doing on Twitter. So your tweets and social media engagement has to be thoughtful, as if you were presenting at a podium. And you should be wise about your hashtag use and your engagement when you tag other people in it. So I think tweets take time. One strategy is to pick a certain time in the day that you're going to tweet. And that can be morning, it can be lunchtime, I'm going to dedicate 15 minutes, or evening. And you can even do it just to view. So when I stopped when I stopped doing a lot of tweets, I started retweeting, and I started just following hashtags, like hashtag CTO. But I think it's normal, and we should always put the patient first.
I don't know if this is working. I feel like and something that, I mean, like, both you and Chadi are like true experts in the field and know a lot of details. Something that I actually learned from Jay Whitmer. I don't think he's here, but you know he does a lot of social media work. Is like he was telling me how you can use there are a number of websites that you can actually program tweets if you want to have like an active ongoing presence. And let's say you're busy, but one day you had some time off and you want to have, let's say you wanted to post every certain day of the week, and that way you maintain a presence of whatever it is you do. Let's say radial first. Is that something that you advise, or is that something if you have more something that you want to advocate, or is it better just to free tweet whenever you can?
I can't take that. It's a scheduled tweet. And this is what Sheila comes back into. If you have a mission, or you want to promote a practice, or you want to brand yourself for something, but you don't have time, like you see a cool thing, or there's a new paper came out, you just remember that there is a paper, you take a note of it or something, and then on the weekend, or when you have downtime, use a scheduling tool. And these tools it's free website. It's one of them is called TweetDeck, or other one called Hootsuite. Are free software. They are on the mobile as well as the web-based. And what you can do is you can schedule these tweets for the whole week. Every day at 5 p.m. you push one tweet. And it's a paper. I was interesting to read this across JAMA cardiology, or this across circ intervention. Anybody has any comments, and you, for example, tag some people who would like their opinion about. Therefore, this way you can keep your follower engaged, and you have a streamline of tweets coming through. If you would like to build up a professional Twitter account or Twitter profile. So this is one of the tools. Other things, you can do a bolus on the weekends. And the bolus, I mean, I have my slides, but I don't think I'm going to go through my slides. But it's on the weekends, especially between 9 and 12 on Sunday. It has the highest reach and the highest readership. I think because people waking up, having coffee, or getting ready for church, like Sunil Rao said. So they have the highest penetration. And also, always use an image. Don't make it just text. As an image. Is it from a paper, or is it from a slide you saw in a meeting or something? Use an image or a figure, because it always helps engagement. You want to go through your talk?
Yes. So just switching gears a little bit, and maybe I'll ask up front, how many here in the room are in an academic, university-affiliated, or university place? Okay, so a number of people. All right, so I just over a year ago, I joined Mayo Clinic, and I was really, this is actually, as I put the slides together, actually I learned a lot, so that's the reason I was interested in talking about this, because after joining Mayo, I learned that Mayo is one of the institutions that actually considers, if you use social media wisely, you can use this actually for your academic ranking in a certain way. So I wanted to share a little bit of those tips of how some institutions have already embraced social media for really a digital social media scholarship and academic ranking. And I think, as all of you well know, there's three typical ways that you can do scholarly activities, right? Either you're a great clinician, you're a great teacher, you have residents, fellows, trainees, or you're doing, you're publishing a lot of original articles and research. And this has been really, there are three standard ways that you can do this. And historically, there's been traditional metrics of how you can keep track of all these metrics and make sure that you're very successful. So if you're a great clinician, let's say, for example, you're very productive, people will say, oh, look at all these RBUs or procedures. Let's say you're a great researcher and writing a lot, people will look at the number of publications, citations. Let's say you're educating at your institution, but also nationally and internationally. People would look at the number of speaking invitations, and lectures and grand rounds. And for research, they will look at grants or you're in committees. So these are the traditional metrics. So now in 2018, as Chadi and Sheila have introduced to the topic, there's a number of other ways that all these things are happening through social media. Sheila already talked about this, so I won't go into detail, but we think that social media is only Twitter, right? And it's more than Twitter, right? It is really websites, applications that you use to create, share, and participate. So it is more than Twitter. And in this number of social media tools, you can use it in different ways, but I'm particularly going to focus on how you can use this in a scholarly activity for the purpose of education. And I think all of you probably do this, right? These are just some few examples that I put together for the slides. I mean, I think all of us, I for sure go regularly to Manos Brilakis' YouTube channel. It is a phenomenal channel with hundreds of videos on lectures on how to do, let's say, bifurcation PCI, how to do CTO. This would have traditionally not been recognized as a worthy scholarly activity, even though it got more tractions, more videos, more visibility than speaking to a small room with 100 people. So there are blogs in the bottom. You can see here, this is actually one of my good friends, Steve Smith from Minneapolis. He has an ECG website. He goes on 20, 30 minutes short videos of how to describe ECG. So you can do videos, you can do blogs, there are podcasts. And recently, you probably saw Michael, you might have seen or not, Michael Gibson has the Wikidoc website, but recently they also created a tweet book that you can post peer-reviewed cases for free in a website. So my point being is there's all these other ways that require effort, and they are probably actually have more visibility than traditional methods. And if at certain institutions, this wouldn't count. This is not your traditional publication or ground rounds invitation. And if you think, for example, I'm just going to touch base on Life in the Fast Lane. Best to my understanding, Life in the Fast Lane, which I for sure have visited a number of times for ECG criteria when I want to quickly look it up in Google, and it will be usually your first or second response. Life in the Fast Lane, best to my understanding, it's a website that is run by 10 guys in Australia, and it has more visits than many of the major journals on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. So this journal have this whole machine of people working, and these 10 guys in Australia have more visits for free education. So that's really where a lot of the future it's going, for free access and open education. So again, there's the traditional model, that it's the traditional model. If I'm invited to a conference, then that's going to give me prestige, and you're speaking, but you're speaking to a small number of people, and there's really limited number of views. And you guys tell me at the end of the lecture, you can approach me, your lecture really sucked, or it was good, you get no feedback, right? You didn't know how you do. But if I post it on social media, look at, for example, at one of Manos Brilakis' websites, of one of his lectures. This is a video that he has, 10 minutes, on how to do a DK crush. It has more than 15,000 views. It has comments that people can provide feedback. So it has more reach, more impact. It's widely available, but usual academic institutions would say this doesn't count. It counts more if you talk to 20 people in a conference. So it's really something that we should think about. And just think about this video, over 15,000 views. I think we would need over 20 CVIs to reach the same impact. So the same thing, it goes for research, right? So here again, the traditional format of, you're invited. This is a late-breaking clinical trial. You're speaking to a few hundreds people. Think about, for example, the Orbita effect, just a few months ago, and how that just was probably the most discussed trial in the history of probably the world. This was just so much traction, the amplification. I can think of myself, when I started going to conference a few years ago, and you would see a principal investigator present a late-breaking clinical trial. You would attend, but you really couldn't approach this big-time investigator and ask him questions about the design or why did you do this. It was hard. It was they're over there. Now, in 2018, I think Orbita has set an example that if you're either the lead contributor or the principal investigator and you participate in social media, you can amplify your message and you can get right there to the ground and answer questions and clarify confusions. So again, I think there's been great papers on that by Bobby Ye in Circulation, and there's this other very nice paper that just came in the New England Journal of Medicine about social media and the advancement of women physicians. So women, unfortunately, it's been tough. They don't get invited to speak. They don't get invited to be on panels. They don't get invited to be on even though they're half experts, to be on papers. So, I'm not going to wait for the invitation. I'm going to have my voice in social media, and I'm going to share what I'm an expert on. I'm going to share my research. So it can be a great tool to have academic advancement. Same regard, it's this issue about academic scholarly impact and alternative metrics. So again, the traditional score, if I go and I say like, hey, I want to go to associate professor, people would say like, well, but you publish in this BC journal and you only have 2 citations. But the reality is that how does that matter in the day of alternative metrics in 2018? So this is just an example of, for example, of JAG. We recently put this paper out, and I think it has like 3 citations. But when I look at alternative metrics, that now some journals are reporting that, the paper has been seen by 325,000 people. So shouldn't that matter more than having 3 citations? So in any case, just think about these things as we're moving forward into how these things will impact in your scholarly activities and how you move forward in academia. And again, this is just to the left, for example, just how the JAG journals now will, rather than citations, to the right, and this is actually in the main page, you can see the journals that have the most engagement. This doesn't necessarily mean that the paper is good or bad, it just means that there was a lot of engagement. So I think both Sheila and Chadi have talked about this.
Can I just...
Yes, go ahead,
please.
please.
The previous slide.
Yes.
So the all metric, for example, in 2017 was the highest all metric, I think, few million, was Barack Obama paper in JAMA about talking about the healthcare platform, and just to give you a perspective. And this is all metric is a collection of multiple things. How many clicks, how many downloads of the PDF, how many tweets, shares on different platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tableau, or whatever the other platforms are. So put it all together and give you a score. There is one paper showed that a paper published in Neurointervention showing the higher all metric, the higher readership and citation. So going back to Jadir's point is although we traditionally go by citation and what's your traditional advancement for your academic career, but this can improve even your citation numbers. So it's a snowball effect. The more people you share it yourself, people will like it, they will share it again, they will go to the website, they will visit it more, and you have thousands and thousands of people visiting and downloading and sharing it again, and you eventually will have more citation. So it is not 100% guaranteed with increased citation, but in one paper from your intervention, they prove that this does improve citation.
I think that's a great point. And rather than your paper sitting in some forgotten website and only your friends, family, and colleagues of the co-authors clicking on the paper, if you go in the paper, you have a Twitter account, for example, and you get behind it and you explain what you actually did, that will get a lot more traction than not doing that. So I think people have already talked about this, but I think when you think like for example the beginning of this session, we're talking a lot about I think non-quantifiable benefits of social media. So I think those are definitely benefits, but they're not rewardable, right? But there's for sure benefits. So you can network, you can collaborate. There's all this case-based learning, and we can all learn tricks. And you can engage in academic discussions, and you can just observe and keep up with what's the latest, hottest research. But there are ways that you can use social media in a quantifiable or rewardable way. So let's say, for example, you create a website like what Dr. Michael Gibson did with Wikidoc, and let's say I'm going to create this free access website. I'm going to give the opportunity that feedback can be offered. I'm going to put chapters, education for free. You're the editor-in-chief on that website. That is a quantifiable social media use that you can actually track visits, how often people were clicking on it, and so on. And the reality is that us in cardiology, we are just getting started. I think we really have to look up to what emergency physicians and intensivists have done. I don't know if you guys have looked into that, but particularly the ER community, they have dozens of amazing blogs and podcasts and videocasts. Like to me, for example, when I have to remember something about an EKG, I'm not like going to the EKG book. I'm Googling and I'm going to Life in the Fast Lane. I'm going to Smith's ECG blog. And these people have really quantifiable, great websites with clear goals, metrics, and very nice content. So again, you can do this blog, podcast, video, or vodcast, and you can be the manage this account. So I asked this before the conference related to this. I will say I'll be speaking at CVI today, and does your institution consider social media activities, such as what many of these guys are doing? And it takes a lot of work, right? Blogs, podcasts, and so on in academic promotion. And does your institution says this has any value? And the great majority of respondents says like it has no value. And actually many people responded what I just told you, that what matters is your peer-reviewed publication, your presentation at a national conference, being in a committee. Having this very nice website for free with 100,000 views doesn't count. So I'm sure some institutions are thinking about this, but Mayo in 2016, actually, so it's been now a couple of years, they formally adopted social media as a metric for academic rank. It's not yet high or medium impact, but it's counted. So that's already an achievement, right? So you would say like, well, does tweeting every now and then counts as an activity? That's not really it, right? They want clear things that you develop, that have a goal, that have an objective, that you can track the quality, that people can provide feedback, and that there's some sort of way that it can be quantified. And that are academic blogs, podcasts, posts, articles and interviews, editor-in-chief, chief content, or manager of a social media network. And as you can see, it gets, at least, it's low impact, but it has value. It has a value. If you're a great doctor, you get RVU. If you're a great researcher and you're publishing, you get papers and citations. If you're a great educator, you get invited. But if you're active in social media and that's your passion, if you do it the right way, you will also get value for what you're doing.
Can I make a comment on the previous
Go ahead.
slide? Number one, I don't think we use CD-ROMs anymore and videotapes, but probably still there in every hospital. I agree with you.
Which-
In our hospital, the same thing.
Which one?
The videotapes and CD-ROMs.
Yes, yes.
But as they showing in the impact file in yellow, Jared is showing there, it will allude to citation, which is a medium impact. So it's a snowball effect. The more you have, the more you publish yourself. And people will take it, no, I don't want to be bragging about myself. You're not bragging. If you have a good paper, you have a good textbook, put it out. Why not? You increase, it's not a revenue, it's not going to bring you more money. But I think, take it in a way you are sharing knowledge. You worked so hard on this paper, you worked so hard on this blog or article or textbook or book chapter, just share it. Why just people start reading it? Again, within the limitation of the copyright and what else.
So let's say, again, I think it's important that everybody defines what their passion is. And we were talking about how busy it is for everybody to do everything. So, right, so it would be hard for you to say, I'm going to run this trial, and I'm going to be the principal investigator, and I'm going to scrap in this 4-hour CTO, and I'm going to have a full-day clinic, and by the way, I'm going to run a website. So it's hard to do everything. But let's say you say, I really want to focus on social media, and I want to create material, and I want this to be quantified, and I want this to have value. So it wouldn't be just about just random posts on Facebooks or in tweets. It would be about creating a clear portfolio. And this is actually from a lot of what I'm speaking about. It's about work from Daniel Carvera. I'll show a slide at the end. He has like 2 or 3 peer-reviewed publications with clear details of how you actually go about this and make it work. So these are just a summary of what he says. You can't be talking about everything. You have to choose a niche. Let's say it's hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. That's it. I'm going to talk about this. What is going to be my goal? You have to define, do I want to educate patients? Do I want to educate my peers? Who do I want to educate, okay? So you have to define an audience. Is this for students, for patients, for residents? Who is this for? Then it would probably be hard starting off unless you have some sort of a team to be in all platforms. It would be hard to have a website and YouTube, and I have a blog, and I'm doing videos, and I'm tweeting. You have to say, hey, for example, what Manos Brilakis does. I have videos in YouTube. That's it. I've talked to him about Twitter. He created an account, but I think he's posted like 5 times. But he has a very active YouTube account, and he posts videos all the time, right? So you have to choose a platform. Then you have to track and report your metrics because you want to show this quality to whoever wants to value your hard work. So you have to say this had this number about visits, and I can say the number of metrics, same as citations. The other thing is that in order for social media to have an academic impact, it needs to be original. It can't be the same tweet, and it can't be all the radial first work that Sheila did. It needs to be original work for it to be actually recognized. And I need to be archived. I need to say, like, this were the tweets, or this was the work that I did, and this is how I disseminated. Something that was very important, and as I was reviewing some of these papers and work, is like, there needs to be an ability to provide comment, feedback, and generate discussion. So that's the way in which social media sort of reciprocates like the peer-reviewed process. So in the peer review process, you publish a traditional paper, it goes to review for 2 or 3 guys, and they tell you, hey, this is good or bad, fix this, right? So if you're going to use social media in an academic sort of way, you need to have a feedback sort of loop. And that's where Twitter or YouTube website in the comments or in a blog where people can tell you, hey, like, I disagree, that's not how I would do this, or change that, and you create an opportunity to continue to fix and improve whatever platform you're working on. And the other thing is, particularly if you, let's say you're in a university or university-affiliated place and you want to use this to actually go up on the ranks for assistant, associate, professor, it needs to align with your overall career development plan. So, you know, if you are an operator and you do CTOs and that's what you do clinically and that's what you see in clinic, you know, it would be completely divergent if you have a platform to run something completely different else. But if you have a website, for example, a blog, and you're explaining all these things and are posting such cases, that would be aligned. So it needs to be somehow aligned. There are people that can instruct about that. This is a slide that somebody shared with me. It says, it's all very well, making discoveries, saving lives, and improving the world, Roger. But your research is making barely any impact on social media. And this is lastly, resources that for people that are actually interested in this and looking deeper. This is just an overview. As I said, Daniel Carrera, he's an emergency physician at Mayo. He has really been the champion at Mayo about how to use this and helping push this in 2016 to be recognized. There's like this 40, 50-minute video webcast, webinar that he did in which he talks in detail about how to do all of this. And there's actually, for people that are involved in education and really want to put this into some sort of a program, there's this paper by Cervino on social media and health professionals education that will take you actually step by step as to, let's say you wanted to bring this into your institution for it to count, to have value. So again, just something to think about it for the future. Thanks.
Great talk. Any question or comments?
I think social media is doing an excellent job at disseminating research, but I think it's time we move it a step further to create more collaboration in research. So what are the tips and tricks to, let's say, if you have an idea, approach a person from a different institution, or if you are early career or still in training, how to find a mentor at another institution using social media?
I'm going to take that.
Just send them a direct message on Twitter or just tag them. I mean, I think it depends on what level of question you're asking for that person. So if it's something more in-depth, the best way to do it is to do it privately, because you probably don't want to feel, there's a vulnerability with social media that we're really not talking about, but it's public, and so if you want to engage with somebody the same way you would write an email, just do a private direct message. And you'd be surprised, a lot of them are very approachable. Definitely the Columbia faculty that are very active, the CRF group, they're very approachable on Twitter through direct message. And a lot of directors of clinical programs are interested in what's going on, even if you are in a community-based setting or somewhere else.
And I think for collaboration, and I think it would be, I know people have done this like publicly, and, you know, they tweet back and forth and let's do this and they collaborate. I think that's probably more that's less frequent. But I think where it really works is that, let's say you are passionate about something and you're tweeting and sharing messages and thoughts and tips about, I don't know, Balf in Balf, TAVR. And this is what you this is what you do. This is what you tweet and comment. It will give you the platform to gain recognition for that. To then, let's say you're here at the meeting and I see you. Oh, look at that name. Oh, let's talk. I've seen all your tweets and stuff. So it will give you the platform. So that platform, I think people talk about how social media creates a democracy of academia, right? And it's that. Not many years ago, for you to get recognition, you had to be part of, of a club to be invited to lectures and panels and committees. Now, you can just do it whenever you want. Share your cases, share your posts, and gain recognition. And there are a lot of people that I know that were previously, that have gained a lot of national, international recognition because of their social media work, not only in cardiology but outside cardiology. So I think it creates a platform for free.
That's why it's crucial to put your interest on your bio. When you write your bio on Facebook or on Twitter, you say who you are, what you are doing, and what your interest is. Personal example, I recently started to get interest in big data. So I saw some paper coming from a publisher called Mamas. Probably you saw few of his tweets. So I reached out to him. He said, let's meet. And are you going to Euro PCR? I said, yeah, I'm going to be there. We had dinner at Paris. We set up some meetings. Since then, we are on WhatsApp back and forth. And we wrote already 3 papers in 2 months. So this is kind of an example. I'm not trying to show off, but I'm telling you sometimes very fruitful. And I have plenty of examples that didn't work. But always you keep throwing this dart and a stick in the middle, and hopefully it would work. And so far it worked for me. Any other comments or any other question that you would like to address before? I think everything covered in the other 2 talks. I have just 2 slides to show you. One more thing, industry and social media. Anybody in industry here? Okay, 1 person, 2? Okay, so industry and social media. As we are a physician, we are in healthcare, nurses, nurse practitioner, technician. Industry start to watch the physician behavior on social media. Not in a bad way, but they're looking for experts in the field based on their social media profile. And for sure, they don't go by social media, okay, but because I'm posting, let's say, FFR every other day because I'm FFRA specialist. No, they go and look more further if I have more credibility in publication, did I present in a major meetings or not. But you are using social media as a first step, as a window, as a first screening tool to see who are the experts. And there is plenty of database you can pay for, and you can identify who's expert in what hashtag in a few clicks. Put hashtag TAVR, give me the highest highest healthcare grading score. And a number pops up, top 10, and there's a number generated by number of tweets and how much engagement happened with that individual on the TAVR. Okay, here you go, bingo, we have identified top 3. They look into it, and we tested it. We did the radial first. The top 10 were all radialists. We tested for TAVR. The top 5 were highly profiled structural people on social media. So keep that an opportunity just to collaboration with industry, or if you are being recognized an expert or KOL in the future. 2 things I want to cover only. Everything's covered so far. So the fear, we talked about it before. There is no peer review process, no control. Anyone can speak. People, they don't like that, and we already verbalized that very well. Journal and society can be trusted, social media cannot. Well, there is a 1.5 million followers for New England Journal of Medicine. That gives you some credibility. That's not true, it's a myth. It takes up too much of time. Well, can actually save you time and keep you up to date with the research and congresses if you select who you follow. If you make a mistake, it will be there forever. Best not to make mistakes and practice good social media technique. It's just for teenager, and Sheila already addressed that. 1/3 already of the US population above the age of 60. So how you start? Choose a platform covered by Jatter. Create your account. Upload your professional photo, short bio description, what your interests are, select keywords, follow key opinion, and if you would like to post right away, just listen. I listened for a year before I started tweeting myself. Which one the right? I mean, we all know this. For networking, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Doximity here. If you want a further career and professional reputation, there is a lot of other websites. Share a slide is another good one to share your slides that you presented at a national meeting is high credible. I want to learn and share, same thing. I want to follow information on medical congress, Twitter is the best. So we created by Europe PCR Online a toolkit for physician how to start a safe and successful social media platform. You can visit the PCR, you can Google PCRonline.com, write social media, and this will show up and walk you step by step how to build your profile and how to safely and successfully build an engaging platform, whether you want to use it for education, for practice, or for personal branding. Last tips: post five times a week. This is not written in stone. This is all flexible. Post on weekends, sometimes hard, sometimes easier. Respond to followers always. Don't ignore them. Use hashtags. Mention people and societies helps your penetration and visibility of your tweets. Use links and also images is a very key thing to use. Any other question or concern? I think we're at the top of the hour now. We're finishing exactly 60 minutes. They wrote it till 5 o'clock, but I don't think it's worth 1.5 hours. But we'll keep it for discussion. If you have any question, please come to the front or just let us know in the coming 5 minutes. All right. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it.